Senator Shehu.
Mr. President, I stand as Senator Shehu Sani, representing Kaduna Central. I firmly, ably, comfortably, and confidently stand to move this motion that the Senate do receive and consider the interim report of the ad hoc committee on the mounting humanitarian crisis in the northeastern part of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I so move.
Yes, Senator Porker.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, I rise to support the motion as moved. To second the motion as moved by Senator Sani. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the ad hoc committee in respect of the motion on the mounting humanitarian crisis in the Northeast. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And Senator Shehu, you come and lay the report and then we'll consider it. Go ahead and present the report.
Mr. President, I have with me here the interim report of the ad hoc committee on the mounting humanitarian crisis in the northeastern part of Nigeria. It is an interim report, and to save time for easy debate and consideration, I divided this into two. The first is the findings, and the second is the recommendation. And I read those. Number one, humanitarian crisis management in the IDP camps. It is absolutely true that there is a serious humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, as evidenced by the plight of the internally displaced persons, both in camps and within the host communities. There is hunger, disease, squalor, deprivation, and...
Yeah, point of order, Chief Whip.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I point attention to Rule 56, subsection 10, as well as subsection 9. I read first 9. When a senator is speaking, no senator may converse aloud or make any noise or disturbance to interrupt him. Subsection 10, during a sitting, all senators shall be silent or shall confer only in other tones. The noise in the chamber currently is an affront to our republic.
The point of order is sustained. Distinguished colleagues, let us comport ourselves as distinguished senators, please. Shehu Sani, go ahead.
As speaking earlier, I divided these recommendations into two. The first is the findings and the second is the recommendations. And I will still read those. Humanitarian crisis in management of the IDPs. It is absolutely true that there is a serious humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, as evidenced by the plight of the internally displaced persons, both in camps and within the host communities. There is hunger, disease, squalor, deprivation, and want among the IDPs. This observation is corroborated by a statement accredited to the United Nations Deputy Coordinator of the Office for the Coordination of the Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, Mr. Peter Ludbard, to the effect that a projected 5.1 million people will face serious food shortages as the Boko Haram conflict and the risk of unexploded improvised devices prevented farmers from planting for the third year in a row, causing a major food crisis in the Northeast. B. Committee observed that the following local and international donor agencies were found to be present in most of the IDP camps, rendering critical humanitarian services. World Food Programme, International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, and Dangote Group. These are the groups that were found to be evidently present in the camps. That there was vivid absence of the Federal Ministry of Health in all camps visited. However, while the few critical government agencies like NEMA, as well as state emergency management agencies, were noticed, but without synergy with other agencies. However, the Nigerian Air Force medical team was found rendering medical services to the IDPs with the little equipment at their disposal. D. That despite the claim by some federal government agency to the effect that huge sum of money is being spent on IDPs in the Northeast, what is on the ground, as seen by the committee, does not in any way justify or reflect the claim. For example, over 70% of the displaced children, both in camps and within the host communities, were out of schools due to lack of classroom infrastructure, inadequate teaching materials, and even teachers. They were also seen loitering in the camps, malnourished, sickly, and poorly dressed. Generally, there is acute shortage of food amongst the IDPs, as observed in one of the IDPs visited. 3 bags of rice of 50 kilograms each, a bag of beans of 50 kilograms each, and a 4 liter of palm oil were given to 30 people for 15 days. These were considered too insufficient, as confirmed by many IDPs that interacted with the committee. 2. Contract award. The committee discovered that all contracts from the Presidential Initiative on Northeast were awarded under the principle of emergency situation as stipulated in Section 43I and 2, but with absolute disregard to Section 3 and Section 4 of the same Section 43 of the Public Procurement Act 2007, which states this: all procurements made under agencies, all procurements made under emergencies shall be handled with explanation, both along principles of accountability, due consideration being given to the gravity of each emergency. 4. Immediately after the cessation of the situation warranting any emergency procurement, the procuring entity shall file a detailed report thereof with the Bureau, which shall verify same and appropriate issue a certificate of no objection. Similarly, the entire procurement activities carried out by the Presidential Initiative in the Northeast contravenes federal government financial rules and regulations number 2908, which says that under emergency situation, a procuring entity may engage in direct or single source procurement of goods, works, or services. 2. Further to subsection 1, procurement shall be made expeditiously without losing sight of the principles of accountability and transparency. 3. On cessation of emergency situation warranting procurement under this method, the procuring entity shall file records of procurement proceeding with a view of obtaining certificate of no objection if necessary from Bureau of Public Procurement. B. That most of the contracts awarded by PINE have no direct bearing or impact with lives of the displaced persons apparently languishing in hunger, starvation, disease, squalor, and other deplorable conditions in all the IDPs. The contracts under reference include 1. Pine contributions to 2 conferences including the Northeast. 2. The purported payment of over 223 million naira for the removal of invasive plant species, Komadugu, Inyobe, water channels. C. That the presidential initiative on the Northeast took undue advantage of the provision of the Emergency Situation Contract Award in the Procurement Act 2007 to overinflate contracts. Not only that, contracts were awarded to companies belonging to top government officials, cronies, family members, and close associates. For example, Roland Vision Engineering Limited, incorporated in 1990 with RC number 159855 at the Corporate Affairs Commission, Abuja, to carry out information and communication technology services anchored by Engineer Babachir Lawal. If you don't understand, his name is Engineer Babachir Lawal. The current secretary to the federal government was awarded consultancy contract for the removal of the invasive plant species in Yobe State on 8th of March 2016. Although Engineer Babachir resigned the directorship of the said company in 2016, which was confirmed, it is on September 2016, which is a record. It is on record that he is still the signatory to the accounts of the company. D. The 95% to 100% payments, that 95% to 100% payments of all contracts awarded to Pine have been paid even as some contracts are yet to be fully executed. Example, payment of 108 million naira only for the supply of 1,100 units of temporary tarpaulin cabins at 302,000 naira per unit, made to Dantex Nigeria Limited, despite the fact that 125 units valued at 37.7 million naira were yet to be supplied. Recommendations of this committee. A. The federal government and states in the Northeast should, as a matter of urgency, that food items are adequately and properly provided to displaced persons in order to address the prevailing malnutrition observed amongst them. B. Serious efforts should be put by both federal and state governments of the Northeast to provide conducive learning atmosphere for children of the IDPs. C. The Federal Ministry of Health should be compelled to immediately deploy their personnel to all the IDPs to support the efforts of the International Humanitarian Crisis Managers and the Nigerian Air Force medical team in providing the necessary medical assistance so as to avert possible outbreaks of communicable diseases like cholera, measles, and diarrhea. D. Federal and state governments should intensify efforts towards reconstruction of destroyed infrastructure, rehabilitation, and empowerment of the IDPs so that they can go back to their respective homes. E. The newly constituted Presidential Committee on Northeast should ensure that there is synergy and proper coordination among all humanitarian crisis agencies if the IDPs are to gain maximally from the entire exercise. F. The Presidential Initiative on Northeast shall forward a detailed report of all contracts awarded by it to the Bureau of Public Procurement as requested by Section 43(4) of the Public Procurement Act 2007. G. The Bureau of Public Procurement should undertake a evaluation of all contracts awarded by Pine under the Emergency Situation Arrangement to recover all proceeds from overinflated contracts. H. Contracts partially executed but fully paid for must be completed by the concerned contractors or asked to refund the equivalent money of outstanding jobs to the government treasury. I. Any public officer culpable of contravening any provisions of the section of the Public Procurement Act 2007 and the federal government financial rules and regulations pertaining to the award of this contract should be duly prosecuted by the relevant authorities. Mr. Senate President, distinguished colleagues, on behalf of other members of the committee, I wish to thank you for the opportunity to present this interim report pending the completion of the full report, which will be presented to you. And I so move. Thank you.
Senator Gbenga Shafa.
Point of order, Mr. President. Yes. I want to draw his attention.
Allow this report to go out.
Okay. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to call your attention to the observations in the submission of distinguished Senator Sani. I am Senator Benga Jafar, representing Lagos East Senatorial District. If you look at this report, you go to the last page, that is page 8, we'll find that out of 9 other members,
10. In all, 9 other members.
9 other members, because the chairman signed the original report,
Page 7.
only 3 members signed. So I would like the chairman of the ad hoc committee to explain to this revered house why we should consider this report. Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Mr. Senate President, in the original list which is laid before you, there is a full quorum of about 7 people who have signed. So the one photocopied only has less than 3. So if he is interested, he can check on that. So I so move.
So what you are saying is the one that is laid here has is anybody, the members of the committee, I can see some of them are here. Is anybody make any objection to this report? No, those who have signed. Just a second. You have your opportunity. Those who signed have confirmed that they are signed, that there are 7 people that signed. Yes? Yes, so the Senator Shafa, I think your observation has been noted. What he's saying that there are 7 people that signed the one that he laid. Okay? Well, let us, clerk, can you get a copy of what he laid? I'll confirm. That's your only observation, yes? Okay.
The beautiful report.
Distinguished colleagues, I mean, I think we should be able to take our colleagues on their words. But on this document here, 7 people have signed. Right. Okay. Contributions, please. Yeah, Senator Demilai, Senator Misawa, and Senator Yaya.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, Dino Melaye, Kogi West, I want to start by appreciating, commending, and praying for the Shehu Sani Committee for doing the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria very proud. Going through this report, I know that this report is a holy report. And even in the Celestial, this report is already approved. If you turn to page 5, Mr. President, of the report, I stumbled on the name of the Secretary to the Federal Government, Engineer Babachir Lawal. And if I have the permission of Mr. President, before I elucidate for just 1 minute, I want to read a phrase there. Mr. President, can I proceed? Roller Vision, Engineering Limited, incorporated in 1990 with RC number 159855 at the Corporate Affairs Commission, Abuja, to carry out information and communication technology services. Anchored by Engineer Babachir Lawal, the current Secretary to the Government of the Federation, was awarded. Mr. President, I want you to underline with red biro your own copy. Awarded consultancy contracts for the removal of invasive plant species. That is maybe the species, the plants were removed technologically. I mean, using the instrumentality of computers. In Yobe State, on the 8th of March 2016, although Babachir resigned the directorship of the said company in September of 2016, the year of our Lord. Mr. President, I am aware that Babachir Lawal became the Secretary to the federal government before this stipulated date. He became Secretary to federal government last year. So, and when this committee started looking at the books, Babachir Lawal, in the fashion of the fastest man in the world, ran to Corporate Affairs Commission and quickly withdrew his directorship of the company after the execution of the contract. Mr. President, and I am appalled that it is on record by this document that as I speak to you, he is still a signatory to the accounts of the company. Mr. President, this contract is not a constituency project. President, my dear colleagues, within my myopic knowledge, I am aware that going by the budget of 2015 and 16, there is no contract, labeled against the person, the name or company of the Secretary to Federal Government. This is disgraceful. This is abominable. This is diabolical. This is condemnable. This is unheard of. And this is an embarrassment to we, members of the All Progressive Congress. Mr. President, Babachir Lawal have exhibited anti-Buahri tendencies. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, one of the finest presidents out of the Sahara, north of the Limpopo, will be rolling in his chair now in anger. Mr. President, yesterday I felt like crying, but today, Mr. President, I want to cry. See that in solidarity, the Senate President is also crying.
I have a cold.
We are not going to belabor this issue. Though this is an interim report, but the resources of this country belongs to the Tarakawas and the Mekunus, and it belongs to all of us. This is gross abuse of office. Mr. President, there is a popular Hausa adage, Gaskiya Tafikobo. The truth is mightier than any currency. And every lie has an expiry date. The lie of the secretary to the federal government have expired. So, Mr. President, from my own exalted position of the senator representing the wonderful people of Kogi West Senatorial District, already there is a clarion call for immediate, just like the judges, for immediate resignation, and after completion of report, prosecution. We are not in a banana republic. Nigerians must not be taken for granted. And Mr. President, the 8th Senate is on test. By this misbehavior of the Secretary to the federal government, the integrity of Dr. Bukola Saraki is on test, is online. The integrity of the leadership of this Senate is on test. And the integrity of every member of this Senate, including Nigerians in diaspora, Senator Benbu's, all our tests, is on fire. Finally, Mr. President, I want to believe that no senator here will trivialize, Mr. President, for the third time, will trivialize this issue based on religion, based on sentiments, based on party politics, or based on any parapoison, according to my colleague, Honorable Patrick Obayago. It is not a time for epileptic parapoison. It is time for us to call a spade, and a time for Dr. Bukola Saraki to act. We are watching.
Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President,
I think you can't longer silence the debate now, otherwise nobody can silence the debate now.
we've lost control of the debate,
Yes.
so we allow the debate to flow. Anything we do now, wait.
Beautiful. Senator Issa Misau.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Issa Hama Misau, representing Bauchi Central, Mr. President. I want to contribute to this powerful interim report. And already, Mr. President, my colleague, Senator Dino Malaye, has said it all, but I want to use this opportunity, Mr. President, to say little things what I feel. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, that is the difference in APC. When we see things irrespective of party, we say it the way it is. In some parties or in some people who tend to cover it. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, we have said it here that the reason why this government is not moving the way we want it is because of people like the SGF. Many people have said it before now. The reason why the board appointments, we have over 2,000 board appointments that have not been made. And people said it that because those board appointments were on market, and many people were denying those kind of reports. And today, God Almighty, in His infinite mercy, has brought this report openly to Nigerians to see the people that are against the anti-corruption crusade of Mr. President. Mr. President is not even aware of most of these things that are happening, but today, through this August Senate, Mr. President is aware that one of his lieutenants, in the position of SGF, is the kind of person who is not in tandem with the anti-corruption war that is given. I remember when the same SGF, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this issue is very, very, very important for this regime and for all of us. This is the same person, Mr. President, that is going against the institution of the National Assembly in terms of Mr. President, I think we have two things to do. The first thing, we call for the immediate resignation of the SGF today. We are not even going to give room for any lobby to take place. We know this thing is already authentic. This report is already authentic. Whoever has Nigerians, they should go to that. At this thing, we have the account numbers, we have the withdrawals, we have everything concerning this account. And I think the DSS, the EFCC, the ICPC, and all the security agents that are showing that they are part of the crusade of this anti-corruption war, they should move ahead to invite this person and let us see that for once this anti-corruption war is for everybody. It's not selective. Once this person is, once we see that the SGF is brought to book on this, we know that yes, this anti-corruption war is not selective, it's a serious thing, and without the prosecution of the SGF, we are sure that this anti-corruption war will not go anywhere. Thank you very much.
Senator Jola Olamilekon.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleague, let me start by thanking the chairman of this distinguished ad hoc committee. Just this morning, when they are passing the documents round that the members of the committee should sign. I could vividly remember my very humble self and Senator Abdullah was saying, if there are anything in this document that we are not in support of, we will stand up in these chambers and condemn it openly. But for the chairman who have taken the bull by the horn, who have shown to the Senate there is a lie, who have come out with the true position of things, even though there is need for us to summarize what we have seen. But if you are physically with us at the public hearing, you will see that the way this country has been managed within this shortest time is nothing to write home about. You see?
Your mic. Your mic.
Release my mic. Mr. President, I speak in relation to the IDP camp. Mr. President, the man who was saddled with the responsibility of managing the pipe, this presidential initiative on Northeast. Mr. President, while he was giving his revelation to the committee, at a point, all that he was telling the committee was not in tandem with the document that was with us. By so doing, we have to put him on oath. We have to put him on oath, including the director from the Bureau of Public Enterprise. Because the document that is with us and what they are telling us are already at cross purposes. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, this is just one out of the numerous findings of this committee. That's why we have termed it interim report. Because we have gone beyond looking at the contract value in its face value. We are lifting the veil of incorporation of those companies. It is at one of our findings that we are able to unfold that one of the companies belongs to the secretary to the federal government. And not just one, because you look at these companies, their tax returns are not there. These are not companies that have been reporting in the last 5 years. These are companies that were just made all for the purpose of awarding this contract at the detriment of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And for somebody of high-ranking portfolio in this current administration to have been found wanting, I don't think we should go any further rather than asking him to resign that position and recommending for prosecution immediately without no further delay. This is not a situation of us trying to cover up anything. If you look at the situation in the Northeast, you and I will agree with me that there is nothing to find home about. I give you an instance. Even the so-called IDP camps, where they promise that they have bought over 500 or 600 this makeshift housing, there is nothing there on ground when you visit. So I want to call on this Senate that we abide by the report of this committee and also implement it to the latter without no further delay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Matthew Rogidi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am Senator Matthew Rogide. I represent Edo South Central District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am going to avoid talking on one of the findings that my very dear colleagues have mentioned very sufficiently concerning the Roller Vision Engineering Company. Mr. President, I am privileged to be in the head committee. And some time ago, we had a stakeholders meeting. Of course, at the meeting, a lot of the things going on in our IDP camps were mentioned. And that is the lack of presence of the Federal Ministry of Health in our IDP camps, when in fact all other organizations are there rendering health services to our people that are in distress in the camps. Mr. President, I think it is worthy of mention here that this Senate has to take the proper decision or position on this matter, because the issue of malnutrition in our IDP camps today is a thing that has given us a lot of concern, not just those of us in this country, even the international community. Therefore, Mr. President, I want this Senate in very clear terms in considering these findings that the Federal Ministry of Health should be called to order on this issue so that we're able to provide the services that we so much need in these camps. And again, the issue of education was mentioned. For all to think of it that our youth that are very many, that constitute over 60% of our camps, do not have access to education at this time, I think it's a thing that should give us worry. And I believe that this Senate is in a position, to correct, some of these things that are happening in our camp, particularly that border on health and education. Then the issue of corruption, Mr. President, let me say too that we have been hearing about the activities of PINE all this while, in our IDP camps in the Northeast. We cannot overstress Roller Vision as a company, as the only company that is a corporate. We have been told too that 95 to 100% of the payments that have been made for all the contracts that have been awarded, that a lot of them too the items too have not been supplied. I believe that what happens to one who is a corporate must happen to all others, because those of them too that have not supplied items for which they have been paid should also be brought to book. Therefore, I am suggesting that a full investigation be carried out for all the contracts that have been awarded by all the companies by PINE, in the Northeast, so that we'll be able to ascertain the level of corruption. Why would I keep the temple? So that we're able to ascertain the level of corruption in this place. The one that we have mentioned, Mr. President, I just believe that we must be reminded when things like this present. Only some months back, you remember that we came up with the issue of constituency project on the floor of this Senate. And of course, I was very vehement about the denial that was meted out to members, to senators, as far as our constituency project is concerned. This issue again has come up. It has come up because the issue of corruption is being mentioned, and its goals is being symbolized by somebody who is in government. That is the pay. And the value for this contract that is being mentioned about 270 million. There is no senator here that has constituency project that is up to that amount. And for one person to be canvassing a position of purity, and of course doing another thing, I think it calls for concern. Therefore, every person really, particularly the one that has been perpetrated by the LGF, Mr. President, this Senate must visit this issue. And if it is that he has become hypocritical on this matter, it is important too that we must bring this Senate to must look into the matter and bring it to book. And therefore, what he has had by virtue of patronage in the Northeast, that he has given to Roller Vision in the Northeast, all other persons that we were thinking would be able to do this job for us in our different constituencies, we too still must see to it that what he has done, he must receive that earlier claim by him about our constituency project, because he is guilty of this. I want to thank you very much for this.
All right, distinguished colleagues, I think we should move to the recommendation as proposed in the report, because recommendation 1, federal government and states. Yes, leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I just want to, as we take the recommendation, I'm a bit worried. The worry is the fact that this is an interim report. We have seen the content, discuss it, and suggest way forward for completion. If we have a report which is interim, the question now is, what decisions do we take based on interim report? So why don't we allow the committee to finish the job?
Distinguished colleagues, the recommendations, I'm sure, will vary from being suggestions to conclusive recommendations. I think the point the leader is getting at is that so every recommendation will be treated as regards what the recommendation is. And I think the point you are making there, I think when we get there, we'll look at the issues as they come about. Because it's an interim report, and we'll look at those recommendations that are suggested and those that are conclusive. I mean, if you're having an interim report, then you have to wait for the report. So let's treat recommendation 1. Federal government and states in the Northeast should, as a matter of urgency, that food items are adequately and promptly provided to displaced persons in order to address the prevailing malnutrition observed amongst them. Those in favor of recommendation A, say aye.
Something is missing here. Ensure that food items, the federal government and states in the Northeast should, as a matter of urgency, ensure that.
All right. Those in favor of recommendation A as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2. Serious effort should be put by both federal and state governments of the Northeast to provide conducive learning atmosphere for the children of the IDPs. Those in favor of recommendation 2, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 3. The Federal Ministry of Health should be compelled to immediately deploy their personnel to all the IDPs to support the efforts of the International Humanitarian Crisis Managers and the Nigerian Air Force medical team in providing the necessary medical assistance so as to avert possible outbreak of communicable diseases like cholera, measles, and diarrhea. Those in favor of recommendation C, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation D. Federal and state governments should intensify efforts towards reconstruction of destroyed infrastructure, rehabilitation, and empowerment of IDPs so they can go back to their respective homes. Those in favor of recommendation D, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation E. The newly constituted Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, PCNI, should ensure that there is a synergy and proper coordination among all humanitarian crisis agencies if the IDPs are to gain maximally from the entire exercise. Those in favor of recommendation E, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation F. The Presidential Initiative on Northeast shall forward a detailed report of all contracts awarded by it to the Bureau of Public Procurement, BPP, as requested by Section 43, subsection 4 of the Public Procurement Act. Those in favor of recommendation F, say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. Recommendation G. The Bureau of Public Procurement, BPP, should undertake a evaluation of all contracts awarded by PINE under the Emergency Situation Arrangement to recover any proceeds from overinflated contracts. Chairman, this recommendation, are you putting that forward before you complete the exercise, or shouldn't this come at the end of your complete final report?
Well, I think it should start immediately. Yes.
All right. And Senator Olasha, you say you had an amendment to that. Senator Abdullah, you wanted to contribute something.
Mr. President, I'm of the view that the recommendation that the BPE that is G.
Yes.
The Bureau of Public Procurement, BPP, should undertake a re-evaluation of all contracts awarded by fine under the emergency situation arrangement to recover any proceeds from overinflated contracts.
It's better.
I think you should just select that.
Listen, colleagues, let me put the question then. Those in favor of recommendation G, that the Bureau of Public Procurement, BPP, should undertake a revaluation of all contracts awarded by Pine under the emergency situation arrangement to recover any proceeds from overinflated contracts. Those in favor of recommendation G, say aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Recommendation H, contracts partially executed but fully paid for must be completed by the concerned contractors or asked to refund the equivalent money of outstanding jobs to the government of the Treasury. And this is the point I'm asking again. Surely it is you, I'm hoping at the end of your report, you should be able to guide us on which are these contracts. So I truly believe that this 8, for example, should be stepped down until you have completed your report. I think that's the way, yeah? So I would, instead of putting it to vote, I'll step down that recommendation if we all agree to it. Yes. Recommendation I. Any public officer culpable of contravening any of the provisions of the Public Procurement Act 2007 and the federal government financial rules and regulations pertaining to the award of this contract should be duly prosecuted by the relevant authorities. Yeah. Senator Aliusabi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If we look at these very provisions, because what they have done is interim, I think this actually should wait till the end. No. Because the issue is this: you don't know the extent of complicity. No. If we have to allow it to go this way, then we should first allow those public officers to be found wanting administratively, and then thereafter you can put them for prosecution, not direct prosecution.
They can continue with their investigation.
Leader, you want to say something?
Sir, what I want to say is after you have ruled on Sabi, because I have additional information. After you've ruled on Sabi.
Oh, okay. Senator Shitu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The right procedure here is you suspend the public officer pending the determination of the case. So you suspend them, then you prosecute to determine if they are found wanting. Huh? You have to suspend them, that's all. You cannot dismiss an officer without proving him. So the right thing is to suspend. So we amend it that any officer found, any officer capable of contravening any of the provisions of the Public Procurement Act and the Federal Financial Rules and Regulation for the award of the contract should be duly suspended and prosecuted.
Senator Mao Waban.
Which motion?
There's a motion to amend. Any seconder? Sorry. Okay, let me. Yeah, go ahead, Senator.
Mr. President, sir, if you have contravened, that means investigation has been carried out and you have been found guilty. So you can't then talk about suspending to investigate again. Contravention means, hey, something has been done wrong. That's what contravention means. There has been a breach of process, law, whatever you have.
I I think I better put the question on this. There was a motion for amendment. Is there anybody seconding that? Okay, Senator, you want to second that? I will put the question.
Mr. President, I'm Senator Chukwukotaze. I second the motion moved by my friend Senator Bali Shitu that suspension and prosecution.
Okay, I'll put the question. Any public officer culpable or contravening any of the provisions of the Public Procurement Act 2007 and the federal government financial rules and regulations pertaining to the award of this contract should be duly suspended and prosecuted by the relevant authorities. Those in favor of recommendation I as amended, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional recommendation? Yeah, Senator Gaya, then leader.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Kabiru Gaya from Kano South. Mr. President, the additional prayer, we have visited this site recently. We have visited 5 of the IDP centers in the Northeast, and we found that most of the IDP centers have problems on water supply. So they have water shortage in those areas. So in view of that, I have an additional prayer which reads, it's noisy. See, weep is noisy. Weep is noisy. Yeah, the additional prayer reads, Federal Ministry of Water Resources should provide more boreholes at the IDP camps to alleviate the water shortage problems. We should have more boreholes in the IDP centers to alleviate the acute shortage of water supply in those areas. Thank you, sir. No, they have water problems now.
Any seconder? Any other additional prayer? Yes, Leah.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is an interim report on the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast. Mr. President, in the course of this investigation, I want to use this opportunity to inform my distinguished colleagues that going by the record provided by Humanitarian Funding Overview in the office of OCHA, that is the Organization for Humanitarian Agency, under what is called the Humanitarian Crisis Response. So far, distinguished colleagues, I want to inform this Senate that the international community, consisting particularly United States, United Kingdom, Germany, European Community, and other countries, have so far, to address the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, donated, and the agencies concerned have received $417 million as at December 5th. $415 million translates to about 127 billion naira. For the committee and other members that visit the Northeast, if you go to the Northeast where we are affected, you cannot find visible and commensurate activities happening. This committee should therefore consider investigating what is happening to the humanitarian funding that is coming, because there must be an oversight. So far, as I said, $417 million that translates to over 127 billion naira have been contributed. You know what that can do if actually
it is used properly to address the issue of the humanitarian sector.
Any other? Yes, Senator Abukere.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Abubakar Kyari, Senator representing Borno North. My additional prayer is in line with the other prayer that the federal government and state government should provide conducive learning atmosphere. I want, as a matter of urgency, the federal and state government should also establish skills and vocational training centers at the IDP camps for those that are above school age. I so submit.
Yes, Seconder. Distinguished colleagues, let me join other colleagues in commending the chairman of this committee and all the members on being able to submit a report before the end of this session. Not only submit a report, but also commend them for the courage that must have taken to be able to come out with these very glaring infractions and acts that are totally not commendable. I want to also, the particular area on the humanitarian crisis that has to do with the issue of medical personnel assistance, the Ministry of Health will take note of this recommendation, and also the issue of food items. The message clearly coming from the Senate to all those in charge of these funds is that it cannot continue as business as usual. The newly PCNI should ensure that they now diligently and transparently see that utilization of funds. And for those who have contravened the provisions of the Public Procurement Act, I believe that this government that stands on the issues of fighting corruption and also being seen to do the right thing must also take this to rapid conclusion. There's no doubt that we don't have any other alternative than to be seen to be doing the right thing. And I think the point raised by one of the senators that the difference in this our own party is that we do not and will not cover up. This area, we must commend those senators that come up with this kind of reports. I want to thank the committee and let the committee ensure that they complete their report by the end, in the next couple of weeks, by the time they complete it, to give us the final report. And we ensure that these resolutions and recommendations, that the executive will take it seriously and see to the implementation. Senator Babachir Lawal.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Babachir Babachir. I represent Borno Central Senatorial District. In all the prayers taken as a result of the interim report submitted by Senator Shehu Sani, an issue actually escaped the minds of all of us. Because what the SGF did, that is the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, is against his oath of office. Because in the last prayer was talking about Public Procurement Act and financial regulation. What of his oath of office? Before, as a public officer, before you will take an oath of office, you have to resign in all your companies. So which he did not do it. So because of that, what he did is against his oath of office as a public officer. So because of that, he should be prosecuted. The SGF should be prosecuted. One of the prayers should be that the SGF should be prosecuted because it is against his oath of office.
Distinguished Senator, I think the prayer I has covered that area. Yeah, who is seconding the motion?
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion heavily presented by Senator Kaka. I second.
Distinguished colleagues, there's a motion which has been proposed and seconded by proposed by Senator Babachir Lawal, seconded by Ahmed Sani. It doesn't need a third second or fourth one. The prayer is that specifically saying that Engineer Lawal, Babachir Lawal, the SGF, should resign and be prosecuted. Those in favor of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. Point of order. Point of order. Point of order.
Leader of the Senate.
The Senate order. What was the point of order?
Point of order, Senator Dino Milai.
Mr. President, my very, very, very patriotic colleagues, Dino Melaye, Kogi, West Senatorial District. This morning, or this afternoon, Mr. President, I draw fresh inspiration from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, and I draw the attention of distinguished senators to Part 1 of the first schedule of the Constitution of the Federal Republic. Because if our resolutions are seen as mere resolutions, and they said, Section 1.3 said, once there's a conflict between any other law and the Constitution shall be supreme. So I read Part 1 of the first schedule of the Code of Conduct for Public Officers in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 1. A public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interests conflict with his duties and responsibilities. Without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing, a public officer, if you read it down, so it is not a matter of mere resolution, and this is for the attention of the executive, that failure for him to resign or be announced suspended by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria amount to a breach of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the APC is about respect for the rule of law. We are watching.
Noted. Leader of the Senate.
I'll continue. Because the president is coming this afternoon.
Order now, call. Order! Mr. President, and
order!
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, you are aware that we are to receive Mr. President at 2 o'clock. In view of that, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, in order to enable us adjourn for 1 hour to receive Mr. President, who is going to present the budget.